The legend of King Arthur has fascinated me for years. Growing up in Ireland and England, having an interest in medieval history, I was of course exposed to the stories of Arthur, Merlin, and the sword Excalibur. In this video, I wanted to give a simple explanation into the timeline of King Arthur's life. In future videos, we will go more in depth into the characters and stories. King Arthur's father was Uther, the High King of Britain, better known as Uther Pendragon. Uther fell in love with Igraine. However, she was already married to Gorwar, Duke of Cornwall. King Uther sent his army to fight and kill Gorwar, and took his now widowed wife for himself. The two married and had a son named Arthur at Tintagel Castle, Cornwall. Due to ongoing violence at the time, the couple decided that it was far too dangerous for their son to be raised at the castle. Saxons were regularly invading, and the castle was constantly being defended, and so it was decided that the child would be given to the wizard Merlin. Merlin decided that Arthur would be raised in the countryside, and so he was given to Sir Ector. Sir Ector had a son named Kay, a man that would go on to join Arthur's Round Table. Arthur grew up not knowing who his true parents were. Arthur's father, King Uther, died, and it was believed that he had no son, thus leaving no heir to the throne, and so a challenge was laid out. A large stone was placed outside St. Paul's Cathedral in London. The stone featured a large sword, and it was said that the man that pulled the sword from the stone would be crowned the High King. Of course, many people attempted to remove the sword from the stone, but nobody was successful. Many years went by, and the sword remained firmly in the stone. Arthur had now grown to be 15 years of age, and the elder brother Kay took him to London, as it was time for him to compete in his first tournament. When they reached London, it was noticed that Arthur had forgotten Kay's sword. He went off in search of a replacement sword when he came across a large sword firmly planted in the stone. Arthur removed the stone with ease, and when he went back to hand it to Kay, he noticed a small message inscribed. When it was noticed that the sword had been removed from the stone, people wondered who had removed it. Of course, nobody believed 15-year-old Arthur, and so he was told to remove it once again. He did so, and the shocked crowd knew that he was the true High King, and he was soon crowned king. A rebellion was started by 11 of the local kings who would not agree that Arthur should be crowned the High King. Merlin, noticing Arthur was in need of assistance, took him to a magical lake. The lake was the home of the Lady of the Lake. Her hand emerged from beneath the water to give Arthur the magical sword Excalibur. Anyone that fought with the sword would be guaranteed victory, and having the sword in your scabbard would offer complete protection. Using his new sword, Arthur fought against the rebelling kings. After many hard-fought battles, the kings were defeated, and it was agreed that Arthur should rule. It was following these battles that Arthur set up his palace in Camelot. Arthur then married Guinevere. The king gifted a large round table to Arthur as a wedding gift. This was the table Arthur would use to host meetings with his knights. The table, being round, meant that everyone would be seated equally, and nobody could argue that they were more equal than another knight. Arthur and his knights fought many battles against the invading Saxons. At the Battle of Mount Badon, the Saxons were finally defeated. From here, Arthur decided to venture off to mainland Europe. He again fought many battles with his knights, and the Emperor of Italy agreed that he should have the western half of Europe. Trouble then began to stir. One of King Arthur's knights, Sir Lancelot, caught the attention of Arthur's wife, Guinevere. The two soon began an affair and would often sneak away from the palace together. Mordred, a man that is often described as being Arthur's nephew, found out what Guinevere and Lancelot were up to and informed Arthur of the affair. Lancelot escaped, but Queen Guinevere was taken to court. It was ruled that she should be burned to death. However, Lancelot rescued her and the two escaped to Brittany. Arthur took his army across to Brittany to find them. While he was away, he placed Mordred in charge. Arthur had no children of his own, and Mordred would be the next in line. Not wanting to wait until Arthur passed away, he began spreading the news that Arthur had died in Brittany. The people believed him, and Mordred was crowned High King. When Arthur heard the news, he returned to England with his army. Many people were now supporting Mordred, as he was known to give away his wealth. A huge battle known as the Battle of Camelot was fought between the armies of King Arthur and Mordred. Arthur's stepsister Morgan Le Fay had stolen Excalibur's scabbard from him, and so he was unprotected. At the end of the battle, many lives were lost. Mordred and King Arthur fought in single combat, which resulted in Mordred being killed and Arthur gravely wounded. Knowing that he was going to die, Arthur gave Excalibur to his knight Sir Bedivere and told him to return it to the lake. He did so, and the Lady of the Lake again took possession of the sword. Arthur was taken on a boat with 3 queens to the Isle of Avalon, where he passed away soon after. And that's essentially the tale of King Arthur, High King of Britain. I hope you enjoyed taking a brief look at the overall story of King Arthur. As I said, in the future I'm going to create a series on Arthurian legend where we'll go more in depth into the events and characters. I'll be back with a new video soon. Gormahagut.